Martin Kemp, let's be honest, is one of the best-looking pop heartthrobs Britain has ever produced.
This is the first time I think I've sat down in an interview like this for many years.
He's had a really rich and varied and unpredictable life.
Yeah.
He's been a pop superstar, TV heartthrob.
Not very good at this, are you?
He's also endured horrific brain tumours that nearly killed him.
Piers is going to come at me from an emotional angle.
His parents, married 55 years, died within a few days of each other.
It's something that I haven't spoken about before, and I find it really difficult.
Martin's actually quite a shy guy, despite all the fame he's had. He doesn't normally give interviews like this, and I think he's come ready to talk.
Piers, I see you out there. Be ready.
Martin Kemp, pop pin-up, TV heartthrob, movie star.
Well, for a while.
Voted best-looking man. I mean, it's sickening, really, isn't it?
I don't know, best-looking man in Britain. It's kind of it's a horrible tag, that, because is everything you've done compared to how you look, or is it because everything you've done is you've got there through a skill? And,
I mean, I've managed to deal with my good looks reasonably comfortably. But, I mean, to be serious, I mean, do you look in the mirror, just gone, wow?
I can honestly say no. I most probably look in the mirror the same as everybody else and go, yuck.
At the height of your fame, as the bass player of Spandau Ballet in the 80s, there was a concert in Manchester where 300 girls fainted.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember that clearly.
This entire audience gone, boom, down.
Yeah, I remember it clearly because it was the first time, really, that the band turned into a pop band, a proper, bona fide scream band. The first 10 rows were just fainting and going down one after the other. And what happened was they laid them out in the dressing room. So as we came off the stage, the kids were coming round, you know, and looking up, and they saw us, and then they fainted again. And I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
You had the blue eyes, of course, and the bouffant here. We've got a poster of you from 1985, aged 23, at your peak. There we are. Look at the hair, the mullet. When you see that picture, what do you think?
It reminds me of a great time, to be honest, because I suppose, in a way, the hair represents everything about the 80s. Everything was larger than life. It was all, you know, there was big cans of hairspray, there was big shoulder pads, there was... Everything was big. Money was big. People were making loads of money. And I suppose that, in a way, that picture reminds me of that.
I love the fact you glory in it.
No, absolutely. When I look back, it was a fantastic moment in my life. But it was a funny thing, because I knew it was a moment, and I knew that we had to make the most of it. I knew that that adulation wasn't going to last forever. In fact, that adulation gets on your nerves after a certain period of time. You must know that.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. so but I knew that there was a certain period of time that this was going to happen, and I made the most out of it, and I think so did the rest of the band.
Do you remember the rider you used to have for all your gigs? The things that you asked for in your dressing room?
Yeah, it was... I mean, the rider cost a fortune. You know, there was Jack Daniels, there was crates of champagne, and this was every night this would happen. And I remember once, at the start of another tour, there was a big discussion about let's cut down on the rider, let's, you know, save some money this year. The white wine, shall we get rid of that? Someone says, no, let's keep the white wine. OK, champagne, no. Someone said, I think John Keeble said, no, I like the champagne. In the end, we get down to the cheese board. And they said, should we get rid of the cheese board? And it nearly went until I put my hand up and I said, but I like a bit of cheese. So it came down to that, and we never got rid of anything, and we never did, but we partied like there was no tomorrow. You know, every time the band would play, we would hire out a complete floor of the local hotel. We would have the party room at the end. You know, that's what being in a band was for at the age of 18, 19.
Let's take a look at how you became the blue-eyed boy of music, television and movies.
Well, come on then, what are you waiting for?
Martin Kemp, the pop pin-up, who has played the tough guy on the big and small screen.
Not very good at this, are you?
From his early days as a child actor,
I reckon I can make a go at you in London.
Martin's handsome good looks and cheeky charm got him noticed.
It must be something to do with my childhood.
In his teens, Martin became a pop heartthrob, then went back to his acting roots to portray 60s East End gangster Reggie Cray in the British film The Krays.
You're not interested in a car.
He really looks like a movie star in front of that camera.
In the late 90s, he became one of the most popular TV actors on British television when he joined EastEnders as bad boy Steve Owen.
I thought I told you to stay away from here.
From one line to the next, Martin can take the audience with him, and that's a dream for any director.
Although in more recent times, Martin's been known for his acting. It was as a young, good-looking teenager that he was thrust into the spotlight when he joined his older brother Gary's band. Along with Tony Hadley, John Keeble and Steve Norman, they became known as Spandau Ballet and became one of the most successful bands of the 80s.
Everyone wanted a piece of Spandau Ballet.
Martin was a big heartthrob in the band, you know, he's with his kind of Elvis-y quiff.
You got any favourites in the band? Martin.
With his heartthrob looks, Martin quickly became a pin-up to millions of fans, and the band were mobbed wherever they went.
And I felt something land on my head and I pulled it off and it was a pair of knickers. And it's like, it's that sort of thing that makes it worthwhile. It's really funny.
Martin was a star from the very beginning. He looked like all those great rock and roll bass players.
But he was to break millions of hearts when, at the height of his success with Spandau Ballet, he met and fell in love with Shirley, backing singer of another mega band of the 80s, Wham!
I vaguely remember my brother mentioning, you know, a girl from Wham looks really nice, doesn't she?
He said, yeah, I quite fancy her. I said, well, you want to get stuck in then? And I really did.
Shirley had first spotted Martin on the cover of a magazine.
Martin to me was so good looking. Every time I used to see him, I think, oh my God, it's so good looking. I was at my friend George Michael's house and he was saying, you really ought to phone him. And he dialed the number and handed the phone to me. The rest is history.
They married in 1988 and went on to have 2 children, daughter Harley Moon and son Roman. They have one of the most enduring marriages in show business. But in 1995, their love was about to be put to the test.
I can remember feeling his head, thinking, you feel like you've got a little lump on your head. I said to Martin, you really need to go to the doctor.
I was just amazed how huge this lesion was. The whole of the top of his head was involved in this.
Alan Crockard had said to Martin, you've got a brain tumour, and then we both went silent.
I just remember everyone being incredibly devastated. I remember my dad having his head in his hands on the kitchen table. I remember going to my brother's and seeing the tears falling from his face.
Martin went through an 8-hour operation.
It was very critical for quite a few days. He had a lot of pain.
He would scream. I've never in all my life heard Martin scream in such agony. That was horrible, horrible to see him go through that.
He had to remain in hospital for several weeks afterwards.
He looked like an old man. He was just sat in the chair because he'd lost so much weight. I think I'd eaten for a week or so. And he just looked like a shell of the person that I knew. But the fact that he was sat in a chair was a good sign. That was a significant jump, that he was going to get better.
A horrendous time in your life. I mean, you're lucky to be here today to be talking
Yeah.
about this. Talk me through the discovery process of this first tumour.
I was, like Shirley said on the VT, she had noticed something, that my head was starting to grow out of shape, which kind of sounded strange, but it was. There was a kind of little lump there. But then I went over to Vancouver and I was shooting a TV show. I'm sitting in a makeup chair and they're pulling a bald cap on me. And as they pulled a bald cap on, the whole room goes quiet. And I'm looking in the mirror and I can see this lump on the back of my head. And it almost looks like Ayers Rock that's there. And it was the strangest thing because you could feel it and it wasn't soft like a tumour should be. This was like a hard piece of skull.
Were you told right from the start that this could be life or death?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you know you've got a tumour in your head as big as that, you don't have to be told by anybody. It's
it weighed 2 kilos.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
Well, the tumour was huge. You know, it was the size of an old grapefruit. But there was a good side to it, because I had 2 tumours, one on the outside of my head, which was here, and one on the inside, which was growing in the middle of my brain. And if they never found this one growing out, they wouldn't have found the one in the middle until it was too late. And that was the one that would have killed me.
And in terms of your skull itself, they'd removed a large chunk of your skull and forehead.
This.
I mean, that's...
And they replace it with a metal plate. But they put the metal plate on 3 weeks after they take the tumour out.
So you're left with this gaping hole covered in bandages.
Yeah, right? At first they sent me home with just bandages on. And every time I turned the corner, I could feel this liquid going shh. I was like this human gyroscope. And I could feel my brain kind of moving around. And so I was just so pleased to get back in and have the metal lid put on.
And one of the more difficult things was during your recovery process, you had a second drama to deal with, the second tumour.
Yeah. They gave me 2 years before they wanted to operate on it after the first one. It's not the best operation in the world because you have to go down through the middle, open the brain and dig the thing out. So I knew there was going to be a lot of collateral damage.
You had this groundbreaking radiation treatment in the end.
Dr. Crockard said to me, it's time, it's growing, we've got to take it out. We want to do it with surgery. Shirley then said, no, you're not. We're going to find another way. So Shirley went off with George Michael, right? And they found this professor. And he said to me, they haven't tried it before, but there's a machine in Barts called stereotactic radiation, where they zap it from all different angles. They'd only tried it on cancer patients and never on a benign tumour, so they didn't know if it was going to work. So I went there, and within 20 minutes of being zapped, the thing started to die.
Wow.
So it was a lot of stress and a lot of worry, but I'd kind of finally reached the end of it.
When was the moment when you thought to yourself, I'm through the worst here?
I think it must have been years after, years. You know, when they take something like a brain tumour away that's as big as that, then it's connected to everything. It's not just a lump. They have to leave bits and pieces behind. So you always know there's a possibility that part of it might want to pop back and start growing again.
Do you have side effects?
Today I suffer from epilepsy, and I also suffer from dyslexia from it, which is really strange because I never had it before. But I remember coming round after the operation, and I had this kind of weird thing, spatial awareness problem, because if I wanted to go right, then I would go left. If I knew that the toilet was over there, I would go over there. I mean, it's as scary as hell.
How important was Shirley's role in helping you come through it?
Oh, I can't tell you. I mean, it's the corniest thing in the world to say this about someone, but she was a rock, and she was my touchstone.
And George Michael seems to be pretty important as well.
Well,
he introduces you to Shirley. He finds the guy that zaps your tumour. I mean...
I know, yeah. He's a special person, George. He's been a good friend to us for years. I mean, it was funny because I remember the first date that Shirley and I ever went on. George come as a chaperone. And I spent the whole evening trying to lose him so that me and Shirley could sneak off somewhere and snog, you know. Yeah, he's a special person. He always will be in our lives.
Did you know from that first date that Shirley was the one?
Oh, no, I was completely obsessed with Shirley.
You're both obsessed with each other?
Yeah, because I'd seen her on Top of the Pops doing, I think it was Wham Rap, wearing this white dress with a big slit up the side. And I was in love with her. You know, when you see someone, you just know there's this attraction and you can't stop thinking
Well, you weren't the only one, mate. We all thought that. We weren't lucky enough to have George Michael batting for us.
But my heart you know, kind of jumped and missed the beat when I saw her, and so it was kind of fate in the end that we got together.
And do you remember the wedding well?
We ended up going to St Lucia on our own, and it was just me, Shirley, and
George?
no, George wasn't there. It was me, Shirley, and this woman from St Lucia saying, "Martin, do you love Shirley? Shirley, do you love Martin? You're married." and it was as quick as that, really.
And there's never been a whiff of scandal in this marriage. How have you managed to be a one-woman man, given all the temptation that has been thrust at you just by this audience? Never mind anything else.
She's my best friend, absolutely. And would you want to hurt your best friend? You wouldn't. And Shirley would be with me for life. I'd seen 2 dead bodies, and I thought, that's me, I'm next.
You were born in Islington, London in 1961. Your brother Gary, obviously, he was 2 years older than you. The family were quite poor. You didn't even have a bathroom at first.
Oh, we were
just
very poor.
An outside loo. Did you remember a sense of being poor, or did it just seem perfectly normal?
I never realised that we were poor, I don't think, until a couple of times when I caught my mum crying that she couldn't buy Gary some shoes, or she couldn't put meat on the table, which is ridiculous, you know, because, you know, we were well fed. But one night, you know, in those days, everybody just used to eat meat and veg. That was it. You know, there wasn't spaghetti bolognese or anything in those days. And one night, she couldn't afford to put the meat on the table, and she was in tears. And then I got the feeling, yeah, we're poor. But there was a lot of love, Piers, and it kind of made up for everything that we didn't have.
You said that as a child you were the shyest boy in the world. It was hard to believe, given the career path you took, but...
Yeah, it's kind of
Can
mad.
you remember that sense of being shy?
Yeah.
Gary said you used to walk down the road and literally blush in the street.
Oh, if I saw a friend of mine on the opposite side of the road, I remember clearly putting my face into my mum's buttock so that I didn't catch his gaze, you know. I would burst with sweat because I was so shy.
Gary used to have to speak and even sing on your behalf. I want you to see if you can fill in the blanks of one of his first songs.
Yeah.
Martin wants a blank blank.
A sausage.
No.
Is it a sausage? Get Martin a sausage?
It's a poo-poo. It's one of Gary's first ever songs.
I know, I've been told that I was a late speaker. You know, I didn't start speaking until I was 3 years old because Gary used to speak for me. Every time I went to say something, Gary would say it before me.
Gary has 1 kidney and you have 3.
Yeah, that's right, that's true.
Did you get one of his? I mean, what went on there?
I don't know, it's the strangest thing, because we're not twins, you know, there's 2 years apart. But, yeah, Gary has 1 and I have 3.
Does he ever say to you, I want one of those damn kidneys? Or...
Well, I can't give it to him because I had some jaundice. So I can't ever give it to him.
How did you find this out? Such a weird fact.
Because Gary knew he always had 1 because he had pain in his back, so he was looking after that. And he has 1, but it's larger than it should be to take care of everything. And then I had some pain in my back, had kind of X-ray done, and found I had 3. I've got 2 normal ones and a tiny little one.
From humble beginnings, you were propelled into a life of rock and roll superstardom. Martin Kemp was born in 1961 into a working-class family in North London.
He was 2 years younger than me, but he probably could beat me in a fight.
From the age of 7, along with his brother Gary, Martin began attending Saturday morning classes at the Anna Scher Drama School.
Martin was visibly shy, but he soon got into the swing of things.
We learned very early on that double the power to be had by being together.
Martin and Gary's first TV appearance was on BBC's Jack Anori in 1972.
Fantastic save from Bob Wilson, it really was. So what'd you about?
Martin's on-screen talent got him noticed by casting directors, and the roles began flooding in, including the award-winning drama The Glittering Prizes.
Oh well, this is the life then, eh?
But acting was to take second place when in 1978 he was asked to be in his brother Gary's band.
One day, Steve Dagger, who had started managing us, said we need to get rid of the bass player.
And suggested that Martin could do it.
The reason I wanted Martin in the band was he looked like a pop star.
I remember thinking, well, maybe you're right, Steve, but he doesn't play bass. Well, can you teach him? You know, so I stayed up for the next few days and nights teaching my brother bass.
The lineup was complete, ready to take on the world.
To make their debut, this newly formed band of stylish young men had their sights set on London's most infamous club, the Blitz.
Boy George is there, Steve Strange is there. What would become the new romantic scene is there. And it hasn't got a band. But you can see Gary's mind turning over, thinking, we're going to be the band of this scene. And that's exactly what they became.
The Spandau Ballet.
Having established themselves on the underground scene, the band now had bigger aspirations.
They didn't want to be a cult band. They wanted to be massive.
After making a big impression on the charts with their early singles, the band hit gold in 1983 with the release of their first #1 single and album, True. It propelled Spandau Ballet to worldwide success.
They go from being the house band of the trendiest club in London to playing stadiums throughout the world.
And all of a sudden, these young girls are all screaming. It was like Spandau Mania, right?
It got to the point where it was crazy.
And Martin was at the centre of it.
Martin was the star of the band.
He would stand for hours just signing away, and as long as it didn't mess his hair up.
In 1989, the band took a brief break. Martin and Gary returned to acting, playing notorious 60s East End gangsters, Reggie and Ronnie Cray.
The Cray Brothers! There was a relationship between Ronnie and Reggie that wasn't totally dissimilar to our own relationship. We certainly understood the glamour and the power of working together as brothers, of walking into the room as brothers, and being twice the men we were.
Yeah. There's no stopping how deep he's prepared to rip himself open in front of that camera.
He's an amazing actor to work with, Martin. I mean, he has great truth behind his eyes when he works.
Sorry.
The film was a critically acclaimed success and box office hit, and the Kemp brothers' careers moved up to another level. But it was to be the beginning of the end for Spandau Ballet.
We felt that the Crays would be an opportunity for us to carry on a career outside of the band.
There is a time in any band's career where it feels like people want to move on.
Just sort of fell apart with unfinished business.
The band split acrimoniously in 1990, and over the next decade, they argued over royalties. It culminated in 1999 when Tony, John and Steve launched an unsuccessful case against Gary as the songwriter of the band over unpaid publishing royalties.
It's toughest, I think, for Martin because it's kind of Gary against the band and Martin in the middle. These are his mates.
The relationship between the band members was more brothers than workmates. So for Martin, I think seeing the problems within the band was like seeing your family fight.
Very tough for you. When you're caught right in the middle of this, you've got your three great mates and you've got your brother, and it's a battle over money.
Yeah. But I think the two guys, you know, the two sides were really fair to me and said to me very early on, don't get involved, just stay out of it and we'll sort this out on our own. It was really difficult. It was like watching your family split up.
Were you, from the very start, always with Gary on this?
Of course. You know, I would never stand up in a court and go say stuff about Gary, you know, turn against my brother. I would never do that. And the other boys knew that as well.
Gary won, and he won convincingly.
Yeah.
The others were ordered to pay him a six-figure sum and sign over to him all their financial interests in the band and call themselves ex-Spandau if they wanted to carry on using that name at all. But a kind of victory that even though he won, does anybody really win in that situation?
Nobody wins. There was no winner. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about anything. It was about the band. And the band, it finished the band. Not only did we lose the friends, we lose the prospect of the band ever getting back together again. You don't go through all of that and then just make up and everything's all right. It will always be sore.
When it came to the Craze movie, how did you decide who played who?
You know, we never even spoke about it. We have, I think mine and Gary's relationship was very similar to Ronnie and Reggie's in a way that Ronnie was the leader of their relationship. And Gary obviously was the leader of ours, being the oldest out of the two of us. So we never really spoke about it. We knew who we were going to be.
You went to see Ronnie Kray in Broadmoor. That must have been quite an experience.
Yeah, it was a strange experience. And Broadmoor, you have to remember, is a hospital. So when I met Ronnie, you walk into what is the dining room, and everybody's sitting there in their own clothes. And Ronnie, in the far corner, was sitting there in his silk suit. He had his shirt on and a monogram RK. And it was like going to meet the Godfather. You know, there were some flunkies around the back of him. And Ronnie met us and he shook hands and he said, OK, ask me what you want. So we spent 2 hours in there talking about murder, talking about who he murdered, talking about who he wanted to murder that he didn't get round to.
And wasn't there a slightly unnerving moment when you looked over and you saw another of the patients sitting there having his meal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to Ronnie about murder, as you do.
As you do.
You know. And over there was the Yorkshire Ripper. And what made it even stranger was that I'd just come from Saturday Morning Superstore with Spandau Ballet. That morning.
Your mum obviously was alive for a few days after your dad died. Can't imagine a more difficult thing to have to do. In 1994, you were starring in a film that was being shot in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil.
Yeah.
And you were filming in one of the favelas, one of the poorest districts. And a car pulls up.
Oh, man, this was terrifying. I see these two guys coming towards me. And they got closer to the car as the car came to a stop. And they had these huge Magnum guns. And I could see it coming past the windscreen. And the strangest thing happened because I looked at the gun, and that day on the film set, we were deciding what guns we were going to use as characters. And I could see this big thing coming towards me, and I'm looking at it thinking, no, that's a nice gun. Next thing, it's up against my head, and the guy's screaming at me in Portuguese. And I haven't got a clue what he's saying. Is he saying, stay in the car, or is he saying, get out the car? All I knew is that going into the favelas in the week before, I'd seen 2 dead bodies. And I thought, that's me, I'm next. And I was waiting for the bang, you know, like you do. And he pulled me out and he patted me down. And at that point, I was starting to think, hang on, he should have shot me by now. He patted me down and he was looking for drugs. It turned out he was a plainclothes drug squad. But I was shaking like a leaf. And he turned me around and he looked in my eyes and he went, Spandau Ballet. Man, I can't tell you.
And you went, true!
My hands, my legs, my hands were just shaking like this. And he asked me for an autograph. And it was like, I'm going, trying to get it. 1 minute I thought I was dead, next minute I'm signing an autograph for him. And
Saved by your pop career.
It was just awful, awful.
Your music career was on hold, but you were about to become a household name for another reason. In 1997, following a 2-year recovery from his illness, Martin went back to work.
I don't know if I can keep this up.
One of his first roles was as a detective on the crime drama Supply and Demand.
Just to get back into a project, to be able to do it every day, I think was a big relief for him.
Martin was back on form, and in 1998, he caught the attention of the producers at Albert Square.
I said, Martin, there's a part in EastEnders that is absolutely right up your street.
EastEnders had been in the doldrums, ratings-wise. The storyliners came up with another dark character, and then our task was to find the right man for that job. The right man was Martin Kemp.
What brings you to Walford? Just having a look around.
Martin got the role as nightclub owner and villain Steve Owen, and became one of the soap's most popular characters.
There was a tremendous level of excitement because he's a big star.
Now you either get out or I'm going to sling you out.
Really?
Yeah. Martin's character was involved in some of the soap's highest rating storylines, including getting away with murder.
The famous ashtray when he walloped Saskia over the head with it, and she was very much then 6 foot under. One of those iconic storylines that I'm sure if he goes into a pub, they'll be moving the ashtrays out of the way.
Not guilty.
And who shot Phil? The episode was watched by an estimated 20 million viewers. And Martin became one of the best-known faces on British television.
I can remember hearing people, there's Steve, hello Steve. And my kids looking over thinking, why are they calling my dad Steve?
After 3 years, Martin decided it was time to leave the square, but he was never going to go quietly.
It was quite a vivid scene, especially for EastEnders.
Martin's star quality had been spotted by ITV, who offered him a series of dramas.
Well, let's hope they like me.
Martin thought, yeah, that's what I should be doing. That should be the next step I take.
It's not the money I object to, darling. It's the principle.
For the next 5 years, Martin combined his career with family life, spending as much time as possible with his ailing parents. Then, in 2009...
Old new romantics of the world rejoice. Spandau Ballet are back.
Boys had finally buried the hatchet, and to the delight of fans, announced they were going back on tour.
Martin made the first move, and because of that, I then got close again with Gary.
After a while, I met John, and then eventually the big man, Tony himself.
It was nearly 20 years since we'd been in the same room together.
It was like seeing a family reunited.
I just remember being so in awe, as if I was watching it like a fan. And I just wanted to hug him, and I was so proud. It was such a good feeling.
Sadly, their biggest fans, their parents Frank and Eileen, not around to see them back on stage.
My mum had had a heart attack, and she needed some bypass surgery.
Whilst Eileen was recovering in hospital, husband Frank suffered a fatal heart attack.
I remember Martin collapsed against the wall, and we were both crying a lot. And what made it much, much worse is we had to go into the hospital the next day and tell my mum.
Devastated by the news, Eileen died within days of her husband. Martin and Gary had now lost both of their parents.
It was what she would have wanted, to go and have a joint funeral with my dad. I mean, she didn't do anything separate from him.
Martin handled it amazingly. He has a hidden strength that I haven't seen in many people.
An incredible thing that your parents married 55 years, should die within a few days of each other.
Yeah, it's what Gary was saying. You know, my mum and dad were the kind of couple that spent every day with each other. If you'd have asked my mum and dad how do they want to go, they would have asked for that. You know, in the end, we had a joint funeral, so both their coffins, it was just ridiculous, really.
Your mum obviously was alive for a few days after your dad died. How did she find out that your dad had died?
Me and Gary had to go in and tell her, and Gary and I had discussed it with one of the nurses there as to whether or not we should tell her at all or make out everything's fine. And then you think, is that right? Is that the right thing to do? Is that fair? Her Frank has died and you don't tell her? So, no, we made a decision to tell my mum. And obviously, in the end, it was too much for her.
Can't imagine a more difficult thing to have to do.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
Shirley talks about you having this kind of inner strength. Do you go along with that? Do you feel you have that?
Yeah, I think so. I think what it is I feel like my mum and dad kind of gave me everything. They taught me everything. They taught me how to be a parent, you know. Which I'm which I'm grateful for, you know. But I think when I look back at my mum and dad, I don't think there was anything else they could have given me.
Did you get a chance to thank your mum?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think we paid a lot back to my mum and dad.
They were great fans of EastEnders, as was you and
Yeah.
Gareth, everyone in the family, really. So when you got that chance to star in it, what was going through your mind?
You know, it was huge responsibility because all of my family just watched that show like it was like a religion, you know, and to be part of it, you know, it was like being made the Pope. It was a huge responsibility, but it came at such a great time in my life.
Your brother Gary said to us, when you get round to EastEnders, get Martin to tell you the George Michael story. Surely the man that introduced you to your wife and saved your life did not get you into EastEnders.
Well, he didn't get me in, but he suggested me. So I know he was up at the Square a few weeks before they asked to see me, and he said, you should look at Martin Kemp, he'll be good for this.
Do you feel like you want to say something to George Michaal if he's watching tonight?
He
I'm sure
knows.
he will be.
He knows.
Is he quite aware of just how important he's been in your life?
Of course he is. George knows how much I love him. He always will.
The level of fame that you get when you're a big star in a show like EastEnders, does that eclipse anything else you'd been through in terms of the age range and the volume of fans?
It does, absolutely, yeah. I mean, EastEnders, at the time I was doing EastEnders, some weeks it was getting like 17 million viewers. I remember times when I was standing in a queue in a shop in Sainsbury's, and I was standing behind this woman and I was breathing in a certain way, and she recognised my breath.
So what happened when you broke the news to EastEnders that you were going to leave?
I went in to see the producer, and I said to him, it's time for me to move on. I want to leave the show. In 9 months' time, I'm going to leave the show when my contract runs out. And he said, fantastic, fantastic. Well, we wish you luck, and we're going to leave the character open for you because we never get rid of our big characters. So I said, oh, great, it's fantastic. You know, I felt good. And I walked out. A couple of days later, I went back in. I went to see him again, and he said, oh, Martin, what are you going to do when you leave EastEnders? I said, well, ITV have offered me a golden handcuffs deal. And he said, oh, right. I read the script, the final script, you know, a few months later, blown to pieces.
We did find a really sick side to you.
What?
After Spandau Ballet split, Tony Hadley said, hell will freeze over before we get back together again.
Yeah.
So Hades did indeed freeze over.
Yeah.
You got back together.
We did.
What was the key thing, do you think, in the group
that
coming
brought
back?
us together? In a way, it was the right time, but it was also my parents passing on. When the band got back together in 2009, this was only like a couple of months after my parents died. There was no one else on the planet that could have looked after me in the same way that the band did and get me through it. They were like, it was like going back to see your brothers that you hadn't seen for years. They were the only people that could have done that for me.
When tickets went on sale for the gig at the O2 Arena in London, they sold out in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Were you stunned by that?
Yeah, pretty much. It was a surprise. You know, it's what you hope for, but it was a surprise when it actually happened. You know, in the end, we sold 3 nights at the O2 within, you know, hours.
Did you re-embrace all aspects of the Spandau years? I mean, was it back to hard drugs?
No.
Extensive boozing, heavy riders?
No.
Thousands of women?
It was completely different. It was... That's why it was so nice, because I think before, when we played in the 80s, it was always about what was going to happen after the gig. You know, what was going to happen during the party, or what was on the rider.
Your combined age was 246. I would have thought just getting through it would be an achievement.
Yeah, exactly. So this time it was all about what was going to happen on stage, and it was about the show and enjoying it.
At that moment, after all you'd been through, the moment you burst out into the first song back on stage in front of a big audience again?
The moment you walk on stage with your guitar, and it was all still dark, and the crowd was shouting for Spandau Ballet, and I looked round, and I was there again with my mates, and we were standing with our guitars waiting for the show to start and for us to hit the first chords. And that moment was, I will never forget, is probably my favourite memory in my whole life.
Martin, reuniting with Spandau Ballet wasn't the only change in your life.
Look, just stay back, everybody.
Not content with just being a successful musician and actor, Martin Kemp can now add director to that list.
I think Martin will come to be regarded as a world-class film director.
In 2008, he directed short film Karma Magnet, starring his brother Gary.
Sandra, coming out with me tonight or what?
Keep telling you, love. Can't have fooled me.
What's there to talk about? I have to die.
No, nobody has to die.
It's for the good of humanity.
I think he's got an amazing eye, Martin. He's perfect as a director. It seems the most natural step to go now.
Martin is loved by the crew, whether he's an actor or a director. They'd do anything for him.
In 2011, he directed his first feature film, Stalker.
It was a great psychological horror film, which he won Best Director for at the London Horror Film Festival.
Sarah, get out of here! Get out of here while you can!
If we're making a film, the Kemp family are very much part of the furniture. Shirley will come down for lunch. Harley might be there shooting stills. Roman's acted in a film for me before. He's a very talented young actor.
How long till break? Think about 10 minutes.
It's definitely a family affair.
After 25 years of marriage to Shirley, family life has always been at the heart of everything Martin does.
They seem to have been together forever and ever. I mean, it's a great love story, really. And you know, in this business, and with someone as amazingly sexy as my brother as well, you'd think that there'd be at least one crisis, and of course, they haven't had that.
They're together 24/7. They go to the same gym. They go to the supermarket together.
They do everything together. They're so boring. Like...
And they're still as in love with each other now as they were back then.
They're just a happy couple still from that long ago.
Their relationship's just absolutely amazing.
They just love each other, so yeah. It's really nice. Yeah.
Delightful kids.
Yeah, they're the best.
One newspaper reported that you and Shirley like to roam around the house in the buff. Is that the secret to the 25 years of married bliss?
Well, not completely naked. I mean, No, I know where that comes from. That comes from years ago when they were babies and we used to walk around with nothing on. I think if I walked around with nothing on now, Roman would kill me.
Your kids did tell us that your bathroom cabinet is packed with beauty products.
That's unfair.
Dad may be a little on the vain side.
No, I don't think I'm vain. I don't think I'm vain. All right, I am. All right.
Harley actually said you had more cleansers than she had ever purchased in her life.
Piers, I'm 52. I have to look after myself.
Everyone we interviewed for this programme, without exception, commented on what a genuinely nice guy you are.
Oh, thank you.
We did find a really sick side to you.
What?
Thanks to your son, Roman. He told us when he was younger and was playing with toy guns with his friends, you pulled a really horrible stunt.
They came running into the kitchen, you know, shooting everybody like all boys do. And I timed it so that I filled my mouth with tomato ketchup. And as he shot me, I went, oof, oof, and he burst into tears.
You nasty, nasty man.
Yeah,
I knew it.
It taught him never play with guns.
Will Spandau Ballet carry on? You're going to be touring, bringing out new albums? I mean, what's the plan there?
I would love to see Spandau play again. I would love to. And if they do, I will be the first one to put my hand up and say, yes, please.
And if there was a Spandau song that would best sum up your life, which one would you go for?
Highly Strung, I think. I think Highly Strung is perfect in this business.
Well, Martin, it's honestly been one of my favourite life stories I've ever done.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.